What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Payne. Welcome back to another Street Fighter Duel video. Alright guys, last tier list. I promised you guys I'd make a PvP one, and this is it. Now we've done the challenge mode tier list. We've done the boss and event tier list, which does not include Flame, Chun-Li, and Vega, and I'll update those as well. But this one here will include them, and we're going to be talking about PvP mostly. Now, with PvP, it's going to differ quite a bit, only because PvP is meant for two things: cleave teams and speed. If you have those two things covered, for the most part, you're going to be set for quite some time in PvP. Of course, outside of fighting whales and not having enough CP, you should be pretty successful with that setup. So, with that being said, let's talk about the top echelon of the unit. So let's go with the Kuma first. Absolutely. Lifesteal, insane damage, anchor killing, anchor being the back row. He has it all pretty much for PvP, so an absolute powerhouse for PvP. You want to use him if you have him, especially if you have him up there in terms of rank. He'll do a lot of damage for you when it comes down to PvP mode. Bison, for sure, 100%. He's SS across the board, probably the most vital and important character in the game. Still a cheat code in every possible mode you can play, and just does everything for you, including tanking, buffing, killing, you name it. He is the most important character in SFD right now. Next up, bZang. The reason why he's so high up there, he's the fastest character sitting at speed 179. He can also boost your speed. He has the interrupt and stun, which is incredible, and he does the first attack almost 90% of the time, unless you're fighting someone else who has a faster team. But bZang is definitely going to be an SS here, because if you go first in PvP and you have a cleave team, chances are you're winning. So bZang 100% going to be up there. All right. Next up, we're going to be putting in, let me just take a quick look here, guys, Flame Blanca. And the reason why is I just mentioned cleave, right? This man, his special and his C2 is a complete cleave. So if you're looking for a cleave team to wipe out the opponents off the map right away, Blanca is going to be your man to go with. Now, keep in mind, guys, these tier lists are all max out 6 cars, full FS, including all of their level, whatever, level 240, let's just say. Okay, so triple S with all 6 cars. This is how these tier lists are being geared towards. Okay, so 100% he sits up there. Now I'm trying to look at the rest of the list here. Oh, MHK, this is the only other one here. Triggers 2 combos, follows your combo, so it's a follow-up lead. His special is incredible. His initial debuff of Dragon Curse is incredible. So everything you want in a PvP unit across the board, he just delivers when it comes down to PvP. So these guys here are going to be your double S units. I'm trying to look across the board here to see if there's anything else that I would recommend for PvP, and quite honestly, not really. But there are going to be a lot of good S plus units. So let's get to that next. All right, so S plus, Chun-Li. The reason why, AoE, super combo gauge, super fast character. Okay, very, very fast character. So that's going to actually put her high up there as an S plus. So a really good character to use in PvP specifically due to those reasons. Believe it or not, guys, Vega. Couple reasons why here. Number one, he sits at 160 base speed, which is the fastest base speed unit in the game, even over bZang. bZang has to get level 3 passive in order to get to 179, but he sits at 160 base. So if you give him Chun-Li in his team, or bZang, who can speed him up, he's going to be even faster than them, so you're going to get initial attacks. Number two, he's got an AoE Hurricane that he does with his 6 cars, so you're going to include cleave and bleed now into it, and plus with his FS30 he does bleed across the board and does more damage with it, and he increases the damage of his bleeds at 150% rate. So very, very good character for PvP. Highly recommend. I've been using him and he's been delivering, so very good S plus character for sure. Next up, Rose. Survivability, buffs. Like, if you need it, you got it. So great unit to use to survive in any cleave team, against cleave teams, and at the same time a really good buffer. So she can give you heals, crit up, speed up, etc. Right? So the fact that she gives you speed up, and if you have her at FS10, I believe, no, FS20, she gives you 100% proficiency, more proficiency on her card. So that 20 speed that she gives you turns up to 40. So that's massive, especially when you pair her with other speed units. Makes her really, really good. So I would almost wanted to put her at SS, but I hesitated there only a little bit, because you take away from damage when you give the buffs, and that kind of takes it away. So she's very arguably an SS character, but I put her in S plus for now, only because the meta is changing a little bit. When it comes down to buffs, it's becoming more just deal damage and get out of there quick, right? So definitely a really good character. Okay, moving on. Gen. The reason why Gen's up here, 2 reasons. Number one, his different styles, he can interrupt, and he's super fast for a speedy character, for an assassin. He also has the ability to change different styles and do different things with his style. So he can stop moves from going with his interrupt. He can do incredible single target damage. What makes him really good is his mirror image, though. His mirror image can take damage for you, so your back units don't get killed right away. So that makes him an S+. He himself is not a cleave at all in any way, shape, or form, but that mirror image helps you survive a little longer because it'll take the damage for your anchor units, which are most likely going to be your damage dealers, right? So really good character there. Trying to see across the board if Dhalsim, I'd say no. You know what? We're gonna go with Guile, just because again he is an absolute powerhouse when it comes down to AOE. So Guile will be one of your better AOE damage dealing units, and then also Sea Viper, very very good unit for PvP. Kills back units first, so assassins will get annihilated right away, and then also has a C3 AOE with with shock and burn damage included. So these are going to be your S+ units. Highly recommend building them if you plan to use them. Jury's up there as well. The only problem with Jury, you know what? No, let's put Jury here too, because she does have lifesteal. She does have a massive AoE. She does have an explosion that does a debuff. She has incredible dodge. So you know what? We're gonna put Jury up there as well too. I think this pretty much rounds up the PvP units that will probably sit in the S+. Yeah, I'm trying to look to see if there's anybody else I think that should sit up here, but probably not. Okay. All right, let's go to S. Dhalsim for sure. His AoE is devastating. The only problem with Dhalsim is because PvP matches are meant to last only a couple seconds, he takes too long to wind up with a C1 if you plan to use that to do a second fireball. So it kind of puts him back a little bit there. But with his C3 and his ultimate, you can do quite a bit of damage. Now the problem is there are better AoEers now in the game than him, so pushes him back a little bit into the food chain, into the S category. So keep that in mind. Blanco, incredible unit for PvP. Only sits at S though because he has a lot of RNG, and because again PvP is such a fast-paced event. If he doesn't get his counters off and his electric shield doesn't proc, he becomes semi-useless. So all of his moves are AoE, which is great for cleave, but the fact that his counter and his shields are so RNG, I have to set him down. I was going to put him in S+ originally, but I decided S because of that RNG. I've tested him out, and it's really dependent on that, okay? Trendy Cammy. Amazing unit. Amazing. Unfortunately, just takes too long to build up, right, in PvP. Just like her C2 is really good because it has a heal, but you can't really rely on a C2 as much, and the shocks have to connect, and her C3 is just a single target move. So she's a really good single target damage dealing unit, but unfortunately in PvP, because it's a cleave environment, she won't do quite as well, but she still is an absolute deadly DPS unit with the ability to heal a little bit with her C2. So still up there, just not as prevalent in damage as she would be like in bosses, right? Okay, let's move on here. Mad Ryu, believe it or not. Here's the reason why, because it's so fast-paced and it's so quick. Mad Ryu can actually take out units fairly quickly with his Hadokens, especially if he is killing one unit and goes on to the next. Now, where he struggles, of course, is Bison teams, right? Everybody usually uses Bison, so if it is against Bison, he is going to blow Bison up a lot, which means you're going to take a lot of damage. But if you can get Bison to explode and the other units are in the front, he can take out more units with Hadokens. And he also has the ability, obviously, to remove a shield with his C2 and ensure you can hit 2 units with C3. So his suicidal rate isn't that bad in PvP because of how quick the matches are, but overall, he's still a fairly good unit to use in PvP. All right, let's go with Poison next. Street Poison is good here for 2 reasons. Number 1, the buff is useful for 1 or 2 attempts, maybe 3 attempts even, so you can just dish out more damage. And her C2 charm is actually pretty useful here. So if you don't have EX Love and you want to charm a unit so they can kill their own units, it's a good way to do it. Here's the only downfall to that though. Let's say you have charmed somebody, right? And they go in the back line instead. Then you're really not having a benefit there. You're just prolonging that unit to go back and attack you again too. So it all depends who she's facing, and that's why she's an S rather than a little higher up. But that's what I would recommend. That's where I would put her in terms of based on her skills in PvP. Sorry. Okay, next up, Fashion Sakura. Very, decent, like a good PvP unit because she brings a lot to the fold. She has the ability to do razzle. She has the ability to do damage reduction. She has the ability to heal you. She actually does decent DPS. Of course, she's pay to win because you can only buy her, so that puts her in the S category, but she's actually a fairly decent unit for speed as well, so that gives her a little bit of an edge there. And speaking of which, you're also going to have, sorry, not her, where is that? Where is he? Zangief. Okay, I'm going to put Zangief here and E Honda here as well. And the only reason why they're going to sit up here is because they actually give you a lot of resistance. And with Zangief especially, actually, you know what? I'm going to put Zangief up here, S+. The reason why Zangief is up there with a 6 card passive, if you use his C2 or if he gets hit 16 times, he instantly does his bitch slap, and he can remove passives for 8 seconds, which makes him actually the ultimate Bison killer in PvP. I've done it many times where he just instantly annihilates a Bison, and that makes the rest of you, like the rest of the team, pretty much die at that point. And not to mention, he gives you damage reduction on all elements, right? So that's going to be flame, thunder, and soul damage. So very, very good tank, definitely up there. Now the reason why Honda's here, he has a stun for C1 and he has damage share, which is good for PvP. So if you can avoid getting, you know, if he can soak in all his damage and then pop desperation, which means he's immune to damage for a couple seconds, that gives your time enough time to cleave, especially if you're a slower team, right? His damage soak is great, and you can then cleave the opponent down even if you're not as fast as them. S units. Let's move over to A's two brothers. Very speedy units, so that gives them an edge. They're usually really good together. Apart, Yang is usually the better of the two in terms of PvP. Because he has an AoE and he increases crit. You could probably even argue him to be an S, to be honest with you, but I'm going to keep them in A because I haven't tested them enough yet, but from their kit, I wouldn't really put anyone else above them. So 2 A units here for sure. Adon, same thing. He does grave injury, which is nice, so it reduces healing, but the problem is healing really isn't that big of a deal, but he does have quite a bit of crit damage, and he does a counter, which is nice too. So Adon will be an A for sure too, like a good unit to use for sure. Elena, we'll put her in A. And here's my reasoning behind this, guys. You don't really need healing in PvP. You really don't. Like it's again, it's a cleave thing. You want to get opponents out as quick as you possibly can. She can be argued to be an S, but I've like my free to play, including my pay to win. Anytime I won matches, I don't really need her in PvP, right? Because again, it's all about cleave and damage and get rid of the opponents as quick as possible. So even though she does raise the max HP of one top attack unit, in the beginning, it's not worth it. She does damage reduction, which is nice, but again, you're not going to sacrifice the C2 when you have like Fashion Blanca or other units that do C2s. I don't recommend using her in PvP that often, but some people do. Alright, Flame Chun-Li, A unit. Here's the reason why. She's slow, number 1, 112 base speed. Number 2, she doesn't do anything special for PvP. All of her flame vulnerabilities take way too long to build up. But with that being said, she does have a few good AoEs that you can use at least. So she's not a bad unit, but she's not the first unit you're going to use in a flame. Dhalsim and Viper will take precedence over her anytime. Even Decapre would, to be honest, because she's faster. And speaking of Decapre, she'd be an A up here. So Guardian Mark is nice, Execute is nice. And the fact that she's actually a quick flame unit is pretty good. I wouldn't use her over Viper and Dhalsim, and she doesn't bring enough to me. Like for example, Execute doesn't do a crit. To me, that's a problem. But at 40%, it does a lot more damage, at 600%, right? So 40% HP when the opponent has that, and she does Execute, she does 600% damage. That is non-critable, unfortunately, and that's the problem with her, in my opinion. So still a decent unit, but I wouldn't go anything more than that. Dudley and Charming Dudley. Let's see. And Combat Guile. So these guys here are all actually fairly good. Now, actually no, sorry, not Charming Dudley, just these two. I forgot to put Abel in S. Sorry, Abel's really good for PvP. Those 2 shields to block, and plus the fact that he can jump his shield around, I forgot to mention this completely, makes him a really good PvP unit, because the shields actually are immunity to damage, not just a regular damage absorb. So that gives you a lot of time to actually prepare and set up. He could arguably even be S+ in PvP, to be honest, but I don't use them enough to really justify that. And every time I have used them, I just outspeed the opponent, right? So definitely still a really good unit because of the shield, but I don't think he's anything more than S at the moment for PvP, because again, it's all about cleave and it's all about speed, and you know, the shield is nice, but it's not a necessity. It's just a nice thing to have. Okay, and that's so yeah, Combat Guile and Dudley. So Dudley is good for counterpunch. His counterpunch is an incredibly damage dealing move. The problem is he is a dodge tank, technically, quote unquote. He's not a tank, but he can technically be an off tank. The problem is the dodge is only 3 seconds long. So in PvP, because it's all cleave, it's just nonstop AoE coming in, right? And because of that, he doesn't dodge enough to survive. So making his counterpunch almost irrelevant in PvP. And I've noticed that every time I use him and I play against a cleave team, he just gets annihilated because it's just constant AoE flying through. He'll maybe dodge 1 or 2 of them, do a counterpunch, but then the AoE will get him at the end and he'll die. So same with Combat God, like, he has a lot of good AoEs. He has a good a good buff removal. The problem is it's such a low percentage that it doesn't happen that often, and you won't replace his AoE. His AoE doesn't do enough damage from a multiplier percentage-wise to actually take over anyone else's AoE like cleave team. So he's decent at best. He's sitting at A. He can be used, but I don't find him as useful as some of the other cleave units out there, right? And then that I think will round up all of the A. And you know what? We can put T-Hawk up here too, actually. The reason why I'm putting T-Hawk up there is because cleave is so prevalent and there's so many debuffs that come along with it. T-Hawk's good to remove debuffs, and he's actually a good tank. The problem with putting T-Hawk up, like anything higher than this, is because the other tanks just do so much more for you, and they provide you more stability. T-Hawk is a little bit more RNG, but his debuff removal is nice, and he actually can't take a lot of hits. But yeah, I wouldn't go any higher than that. All right, rounding up the rest of these guys, the Bs are going to be here, 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 and let's put in, yeah, I almost want to do Mayor Cody, but I don't. You know what, we're gonna put Poison in here. So these guys here, here's the problem. Guy is very fast. He's good at assassinating back row. You know what, sorry, let's put Guile in A. I think he's better than that. So let's put him in A because he's an assassination and back row. But again, the problem is I'm looking at it in the perspective like you won't use him over Viper. For example, like Viper just does way more than him in every single aspect. The thing that's good with Guy though is his special and his C to actually attack back row. So you can kill back rows fairly quickly against Bison teams, but again, you want AoE realistically at the end of the day, and Viper provides that as an assassin. He doesn't. So I'll put him in A for that as an option, but I don't think he's higher than that. All right, going to Cammy and Makoto and Poison. So single target, one of the best single target damage dealers in the game. Again, we talked about it many times. Cleave, useless in my opinion in PvP. Like I use her, I've tried her, she just doesn't deliver. And the problem is the fact that she goes into opponents in PvP to do all of her moves. She can get one shot fairly easily, and that is exactly the case in PvE, and that's why she's not that high up in PvE. But in bosses, she's absolutely dominant, right? Makoto, we talked about this already. It's because you have to build up so much in PvP or with her that PvP is too quick. With an AoE cleave team, against an AoE cleave team, she's not going to have enough time to build up a key focus and her key flow, so it's going to end up making her quite irrelevant, even though she's a decent unit. And the fact that you need an all-female team to really thrive from a lot of her traits kind of sucks as well. Poison's actually not bad. I put her in B because she just doesn't do enough damage, and the silence is okay. The silence is really low in percentage in landing, and number two, if you're not the first opponent to land a silence, she ends up getting pretty much one shot because she's so squishy. So she can arguably be an A, but I think B is probably a good place for her. I'll even put Fei Long up in B as well too, to be honest. He has a stun, right? That's probably a good thing, and he's a fast character. So I'll put him in B, but again, no real utility in PvP outside of maybe being an assist, but that's probably about it. And then the rest of these guys round up here as the last ones, the ones you probably don't want to use at all in PvP. There is a case for Charming Dudley, only because he does do decent damage, and Black Rose does absorb healing, but like again, a lot of people don't use healers in PvP, so that takes away a lot of his utility. Alright guys, that's the PvP list. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be updating the other two tier lists with Vega and Chun-Li very shortly. Talk to you guys next one. Take care.